Hello and welcome to the Andy Hardy Show. I'm your host, Andy Hardy. This is the second episode of the Back to Scratch series. So I hope you guys are having a great day and are ready for a lot of interesting discussion. Probably the easiest way to state that. So last week we covered kind of a slightly more or less in-depth review of what the Independent Fundamental Baptist cult was like and about. And today we are going to be coming to the point where I got out of said cult. And honestly, my disillusionment with the Baptist cult kind of started when I was in college. I was 17 years old, just graduated high school, and I had gone to one of their private seminaries, Bible colleges, whatever you want to call it. And I had gotten sick, and I was really depressed, and I was in a lot of pain. I had some physical pain for a number of reasons, and I decided that I just wanted the pain to go away. So I found a bottle of painkillers, and I took most of it. I went to sleep in my dorm room, and I just really wanted to die. I did. And I woke up about an hour later, and I was just vomiting my guts out. And so a friend of mine grabbed me, and he put me in his car with the trash can. We went to the nearest emergency room. And from there, I was treated, and I was taken care of. And then when the faculty of the school found out, when the chancellor found out, he called me in his office, and he pretty much yelled at me, and he said, "How dare you try and commit suicide at my college? Do you know what that would have done to our fall enrollment if you had died?" Yes, tell me. What would that have done to your fall enrollment if I had died? Because basically, my life's purpose is to further your awesomeness, Mr. Butthurt. You know, and I've got to say that my disillusion definitely kind of started at that moment where I'm like, this guy was a family friend. He was supposed to be my friend. He supposedly loved me. He supposedly loved God. And the first thing he could tell me was how I'm hurting his cause, because they made it all about that. And yeah, did I carry some guilt over that? For sure. But that began my disillusionment. However, for years, I was still so brainwashed that I tried to get back to that school. I tried to make enough money so I could go back and enroll in that college, because I felt like I was worthless to God if I didn't, more or less. So what are these Christian colleges? Well, they're just an extension of the education of the Christian schools, but it's definitely more in depth as far as the indoctrination level. They kind of kick it up a notch. And they really work on the whole biblical theory. They shove Bible verses down your throat. They shove all kinds of preaching, which preaching is just when a guy gets up and rants and yells about stuff. Typically, it's stuff that he himself is just guilty of and he feels bad about, and the best way he can do it is by pretending he's better than everyone else and has never had issues in this area, but is somehow an expert. And that's one of my favorite things about this convention, is how they boast their ability to defeat drug and alcoholism, to defeat any form of addictions that they all claim they've never had. That's amazing. It is. It's like a guy who wants to rebuild your transmission and he's never seen one. I'm not going to let you rebuild my transmission if you've never seen one, let alone claim to not even know how it works. And it's the same thing. I have no idea how someone could be an alcoholic. Let me tell you how you can not be one, or how you can quit being an alcoholic. And it's like, wait a minute. First of all, if you have any useful information on being an alcoholic, you've probably been one and successfully quit being one, right? Right, sure. Or you've studied alcoholism. But you're telling me you've done neither of those two things. You have never taken a drink of alcohol in your life, and yet you have some kind of relevant information for someone who can't quit drinking. And the way they make sense of it, I mean, from a third-party view, that's just nuts. The way they make sense of it, though, is that they read in the Bible, is that God spoke to them while they were reading in the Bible, and this is what he said. So that's cute. I mean, it's real cute, but it's a load of bullshit. So anyway, my disillusionment came at that point, and I was working my way out of such things. From that point in college, I was in a lot of physical pain. I did leave school. The doctors realized that I needed to have a spinal decompression because I have spinal stenosis. And so I had the decompression surgery. I felt like a new man. I went and got the most shitty job in the world thanks to the pastoral counseling I had received, because the pastoral counseling said this: so you're out of high school. What do you do from here? Do you seek a career? Do you identify yourself and say, I'm good at something? What do you do? So if you sit down with a pastor, the pastor will say, well, do you want to serve God? And you say, what do you say? Well, of course you say yes. I mean, if you say no, then you're heathen, right? So yeah, I want to serve God, right? Okay, so then you've got to go into the ministry. That's your only option. You can't be an executive. You can't be a doctor. You can't be anything but in the ministry. So how do you do that? Well, in order to get accepted into a minor ministry, or any major ministry for that matter, you have to have gone to Bible college. So they send you to a Bible college, and you have a number of Bible colleges that your church approves of that you can pick from, and then you go to that institution where you're just brainwashed on a daily basis. You're kept totally worn to the core. They run these kids like crazy. So when I was in college, the way it worked is there was an on-site facility. It was a call center. It was a telecom. What is that called? When people call you on the phone, what's that called? Telemarketing. It was a telemarketing center run out of the college. What happens is then from there, your paycheck actually didn't come to you. Your paycheck went right to the college. The college would then cash out your paycheck. They would take everything you owed them, and then they'd give you anything left over. And of course, I never made any money because I was always broke. So from that point, then to cover whatever else I owed them, I had to do work scholarship, which meant you spent 40 to 50 hours a week working, like more or less, it's a full-time job, you're working, and then you spent the however many hours a week you had class trying to learn. Well, within the beginning of the semester, I gotten sick, and this is prior to having committed suicide, but I got sick, I failed all my classes. And then that's kind of what led down to the road to me trying to commit suicide, which then led to the road of me being chewed out by the people who supposedly loved me, which then kind of opened up my eyes a little bit. But from there, I still spent several years working very crappy jobs, trying to get a hold of my life, as they would have put it, so that I could go back to their Christian schools. Because until I went back to a Christian college and graduated, I was no one. I could be no one in the eyes of these people who really didn't matter in reality, but to me, in my head, they mattered so much, that's all I sought. So at one point, I had a very good career. I was working with the Men's Wearhouse, making very good money. And what happened at that point is they made me choose, because a career was taking so much of my time. And they said, well, you need to choose church or your career. Well, obviously, I had been brainwashed to choose church, so I did. So I quit my career like a real idiot. It's just, that's what they did, though. You weren't allowed to have, if a job interfered with church, and I went over this in the previous podcast a little bit, but if your job interfered with church, you weren't allowed to have it. That was bad. You had to quit your job. If it interfered with you being a spiritual person, if your job involved alcohol, so one of my first jobs was working at Walmart, I wasn't allowed to. The church didn't let me serve, or I couldn't check someone out who had alcohol. Now, because of the layout in the workplace now, you can refuse that, but they made it, again, a lot of guilt by association there, but if someone came through your checkout and you checked the alcohol out and you put it in their bag and they paid for it, if that person went out, had a car accident and killed someone, the church considered you to be guilty of that person's victim or of that person's alcoholism, or if they abused someone while they were drunk on alcohol, the church considered you to be guilty because you helped them do that. That is very wrong. It's so wrong. And like the stress, like you just look at it, the stress I carried and the stress that people in these cults carry on themselves for other people, they'll call it you're carrying a burden for America. It's not a burden. It's stupid. No, guess what? You can't fucking control the universe. Get over your piddly little stupid self. Go out there and be nice to somebody and take care of your family. Like to me, I look at it as taking care of your kids and spending time with the people you love and who love you. I think that's probably one of the highest callings to me, because growing up, it was at the bottom of the barrel. You were not, there was no, they didn't promote, they wanted to say we promote family environment, we promote family people, but they didn't promote any of that. They promoted you coming to church. They promoted you giving your money to church and church-related issues, which we can get into that another time. But they promoted all of that. It had nothing to do with your family. It had nothing to do with family values or any kind of realistic fundamentals. The fundamentals were just based on what the church needed, and the church had better have access to your tit 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, or, you can go fuck yourself. That's how it worked out. And that's how they would treat you like that. The pastor and the faculty of the church would treat you like absolute shit if you weren't showing up, if you weren't tithing. Oh my gosh, there were some churches that were, again, tithing's 10% of your income for those of you who are just joining us. But if you weren't tithing and on a regular basis, and they kept track of it, like, because they have these envelopes. You go to these churches, they've got tithe envelopes. They expect you. They expect visitors. They expect regular people to put their name and their information down and then write down how much money on this envelope. And they preach against it, and then they make you do it. Because they preach against you telling people how much you're giving to the church. Hello, you just put down, $25 or 25 cents if you were me. But $25 on your envelope or $200 or whatever your tithe was, 10% of your income for that week or that month, however you're paid. And they, based on that, so if they looked at the tithe records and you hadn't been tithing, most of the times they wouldn't give you counseling, which people thought they needed to be counseled by these people. But they wouldn't talk to you. They wouldn't give you counseling. They didn't give you attention if your tithe was dropping. And also, they were very judgmental about it. But there's a couple of churches we were in, they demanded that all the staff who sat up on the platform's a big area where they do the preaching and everything, everybody worships everybody who's on the platform. It has nothing to do with God or a cross. They worship the people on the platform. It's that plain and simple. That's why half the people who get up and sing on a Wednesday night have no clue what an A minor note is. They're up there because they want to be worshipped. Plain and simple, because everybody worships all the people who are on the platform. It's that simple. Anyway, don't go to churches on Wednesday night. They're typically the worst service. They're the drudge. They're the people who sing on Wednesday night are the people who aren't qualified to sing on a Sunday morning for a lot of reasons. Typically, they just suck. That's how they initiate the new... I know I'm talking about this. You're like, what, sing? Who sings? Yeah, I mean, I guess, there are enough worship services out there now, and there's singing and dancing and banding is a big enough thing in churches. But the people who sing in a Baptist church on a Wednesday night, and probably most churches, they're either the people who are just starting out in music, in the church music anyway, so it's kind of their initiation, and then other than that, it's everyone who just sucks dick, really, and it's bad. It's really bad. So I don't even remember where I was going with that, but that's. I think we got way off track on this church thing. I know what it was about. So these churches demanded that all the staff and faculty who sat on the platform, that they put their tithe in an envelope and put it in, or put cash in the offering plate. And the reason is it's a twofold reason. One is, yes, it's image. And the second reason is brainwashing people into, like, the people look at the people on the platform, they're like, oh my God, look at how nice that suit is. Look at how nice that paisley tie is. Look at that pocket square. Oh, he looks good. And they're all about their nice clothes, the ones who are. And they're there to impress you. And it's impressive. Most churches, good big churches, especially the big churches with big numbers that keep growing, they're doing it because they are very good at what they're doing. They're branding. They're getting up on that platform, and they're like, look at us. We are awesome. We are so cool. This is so awesome. Don't you want this? And people are like, yeah, I want that. I want to be that. I want to be cool. I want to be these big Christians who get to sit on a platform. And then what happens is when the offering comes and they pass these plates. They look stupid. They look like Frisbees with holes in them, but it's a plate for you to put your money in. And they pass the plates around. What do all the cool, amazing people on the platform do when they pass that plate? They get up out of their chairs, and they walk down. Oh, they walk down the steps of the platform, and they take their huge, bulging, erectile envelopes and stuff them because they're so big. They've got to just cram them into that offering plate because they give so much to God. Most of it's full of shredded paper. But, there's like $2 bills in there. and a couple of pennies. So they do that, and then you identify with being important, with being lifted up in the church, with what? Tithing. So you want power, you want to be lifted up, so what do? You tithe. Or you just respect them enough to tithe. There are plenty of people sitting in these churches. I think somebody's here. Yeah, she's here.
And that's never a good thing to me, so. I gotta go. I think I need to grab the podcast.
That's fine.
Alright, I'll go. Alright, I'll catch you. Bye. Sorry, Andy.
That's okay, I can take a break.
So I take it that's a no on the line?
1 hour later.
Okay, so I guess we're going to leave it there for this week. Thanks for watching this episode, and tune in again next week for another interesting look at the independent fundamental Baptist movements.